Welcome to another episode of The Writer's Dream, where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for The Writer's Dream. You can also find us here at ltv-eh.org. Look for video on demand and find The Writer's Dream, and you can see episodes of The Writer's Dream there. If you wish to contact me about being on the show or asking a question, please contact me through the Facebook page. Today's guest is Elaine Donadio, and she is an author, an educator, and a poet. She is the author of The Science Project, The Ocean's Way, which has a poetry companion to it, Ocean's Way Poetry Companion, Hoodoo Voodoo, and A Sojourn into Night, The Science Project as well.
Yes.
So, Elaine, you and I have a similar journey. We both started in education, found something that we really thought was important and enjoyed, and wrote our books. So, tell us about your writer's journey.
Okay, first I'd like to thank you for inviting me to join you here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. You know, I always loved words. My college major was communication arts and sciences. I was a secondary ed minor. And I loved to write, but I never took the time. It seems that with my personality, I was always in a hurry. I'd like to get things done quickly. So I never took the time to write. But people always asked me to help them write. And whenever I did write anything, I enjoyed it. And even when I was working as a teacher and a reading specialist, the paraprofessionals or the student teachers would ask me to help them, look over their work. And I do the eulogies for the family funerals, I'm sorry to say.
Me too.
So, I always found that I was writing. And then about 6 months before I retired, I don't know, I just sat down and I said, no, I'm going to start, because I always felt guilty that I never did it. And I just had one line that came into my mind. It was, everything was right until it wasn't. And the funny thing is, that got me started. I wrote my first book, The Science Project, and then 2 additional books in that series, which are also standalone titles. And the funny thing is that I eliminated that sentence, which started everything. And I'm writing another book right now, actually 2 more, which I guess we'll talk about later. But I started that one also with that same sentence, and it got me started. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually use it, if I'm going to keep it there, but it got me started. And then I wrote the other 2 books, and they had to be written because my characters had a story. They had friends. Their friends had stories, and all of these, of course, were imaginary people. They're not based on any real person. They are composites of people I have met throughout my life, and situations that I know exist, some through real-life experiences of people I know, students that I've had, things I've seen in the news, and I put it together so that I could best explain my character's situation.
So that's a great sentence to start. The blurbs on the back of the book. Everything was right until it wasn't. The same thing with your advertising, your elevator pitch, which we'll get to. But I like the fact that you say your books feed your head, your heart, and your soul.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Well, I always enjoyed learning. I loved being a student, and I loved being a teacher, and I love when the students show that they understand what's going on. So I have a lot of science and social studies facts in my books, and I feel that in most school situations, they don't use content area learning. They look at science and social studies as separate from life. My feeling is that science and social studies are part of real life, our everyday experience. You cannot go through the day without experiencing science and social studies.
Exactly,
So
yes.
they should not be, to me, separate subjects. So I found that I put a lot of science and social studies facts into my books, and they were well researched. I also have a free online study guide for all of my books with open-ended questions that are in alignment with state standards for science, social studies, and literacy. And no one is going to grade the questions because I wouldn't see them, but they're there. And some of the questions are related to my books, but most of them require extensive independent research, either from reading books or Googling, whatever, lectures or whatever it might be. But all of the standards are covered, in my questions. And then as far as that's feeding the head, feeding the soul, all of my characters have situations, either heartaches, disappointments, loss of loved ones, fears, and they try to overcome them. And one thing that always bothers me about today's society, besides the fact that people are careless about the environment, it's the way people treat each other. They're very impersonal, and I feel that people are too much involved in social media, and they don't need any friends because they have social media and they can communicate that way. And I feel that people and students and children, actually all ages, are not as nice to each other as I would like for them to be. And in my stories, we find that the friends have conflicts, minor things. They're upset with their parents, they're upset with their teachers, with their classmates,
Sounds like
with their friends.
teenagers to me.
Exactly. Middle grade. My books are written for middle grade
Me
students,
too.
8 to 12 years old, mostly
That's
really
so funny.
10 to 12, right. So it just seems to me that they get angry with each other and they say something or they want revenge, but then they get over it, and then they look at the whole picture. And then the soul is that, I think, the feeling that, we each can make a difference in the world, and that's something that I write. I do blog posts also on my website, and I always say one experience, one person at a time, that we don't have to change the world by doing big things, by being part of an organization or being part of a large movement. And I feel that if you just go day by day, and if you're kind to people and do whatever you can to save the environment, to help people save themselves, to show kindness to them, so to raise self-esteem for each other. And I believe that that's the way we should live our lives. So that's why I say that it feeds your head and your heart and your soul.
Well, I found 4 of your characters, Holly and Jasmine, and Nestor and Phil. Would you like to give one example of just what you said from the books, that Holly and Jasmine and Nestor and Phil are in different books?
Yes, they are.
So-
But actually, they're all in the Science Project, and I mentioned that they are a series, but they're standalone, so they're all mentioned in all of the books.
Okay.
But the characters, Phil and Nestor, are in the Science Project and in Hoodoo Voodoo, and Holly and Jasmine are predominantly in The Ocean's Way. Let's just start with Holly and Jasmine. Holly is very different from Jasmine. She's very sweet, very well liked. Jasmine is a tough girl. With, she's nice, but she always feels the need to defend herself. We find, as we're into the book, that she has a lot of problems at home. I don't want to give it away, but I don't know if I should say, but her mother is an alcoholic and neglectful of her. I just said it.
My main character, Annie's mother, is an alcoholic too. This is so funny.
Okay. So you understand. So there are issues here.
Yeah.
And she's also neglectful of Jasmine's baby sister. The father left because he was disgusted. They were always fighting. And the bulk of the responsibility at home is falling on Jasmine. Now, Holly is the main character of the book, but Jasmine follows along with her. But Jasmine does everything she can to hide her situation from Holly and from the neighbors, from the school, from everywhere, because they have child protective services knocking on the door. Some of the neighbors think something is going on, so they come to check, but they hide. They don't answer the door. And then Holly finds out about this and feels guilty that she was so quick to judge Jasmine's bad temper, now understanding it. Also, the book is set in South Florida. They're going to really learn about marine life, and Holly loves to swim, and Jasmine is terrified of the water, and she's terrified of airplanes. And Holly is on the airplane saying, look, look, we can see our houses, as we're over at LaGuardia Airport, you know, and flying around, because that's where they live. And she said, no, I'm not looking, don't talk to me. So when she does this, you know, Holly finds that she has to really learn to understand her friend and learn to give her space to do things in her own time. Throughout the book, things do change, but she learns that everybody does things in their own time, in their own way. And then with Nestor and Phil, we have two opposites there. Nestor he's a real rascal. He's a big teaser. He wants to be popular, like his very tall, handsome, broad-shouldered best friend, Phil, who was wonderful to him. So it's not that Nestor is envious of him. He just wishes he could be that way. But he wants that popularity. So he proceeds to tease everybody, like to get their attention, but of course it doesn't work. But Phil doesn't have to do that. He just has to be his normal self.
He just has to be Phil.
Right, exactly. So that gives you an idea of, you know, the characters and how they
the
go
conflict,
through life. Yes,
which
yes.
is what you need to have.
Right.
And how about your plots? The plots in the book, are they similar or?
Well, yes and no. My first three books is the Montgomery School Kids series. Okay. So the first book is the Science Project. That, as I said, is Nestor and Phil. So we find that Nestor is bothering everybody, and Phil has become embarrassed to say that he knows him, that he's his good friend. And the girls too, they live in the same neighborhood, they're in the same, as a matter of fact, they're in the same school, but Holly and Jasmine happen to be in the same science class with Nestor. And Nestor is bothering Quan Min. He's a new boy in the class, new to the country. We're in the fall now, and he just came in September to the school. And he says he's resentful because
your characters are multicultural then?
Multicultural, definitely. It's New York City characters. They're 11 and 12 years old. Yes, exactly. And Nestor resents Quan Min because he just got here. Kids say hello to him first before they say hello to me. They like him more than they like me. So I hate him. By the way, did I mention, I hate him. Okay, and not for any other reason other than he resents his popularity.
Sure.
So he decides he's going to get after him, and then Quan Min finds his revenge, and Nestor learns his lesson because he has antagonized everybody. So then we go to the story of The Ocean's Way. The girls win a contest in school, poetry writing with a grant writing contest with their science teacher. So they get a free trip to South Florida. Holly's mother comes as a chaperone. So the four of them go and they visit all the major parks, you know, in South Florida. And of course, by the way, everybody's learning science facts and
Sure.
social studies facts
Sure.
here, mostly through tour guides. And they find that at the end, the most touching thing for them is that they participate in a rescue of pilot whales on the west coast of Florida. And unfortunately, not all of them make it. And they're very touched by this, and they're part of their job is that they're going to do a science presentation for the school when they get home. And they do a multimedia presentation. Jasmine's father helps them because he's taking courses at the film school in New York and Manhattan, and the mother, Holly's mother, is a graphic artist. So everybody participates in this, and they get all kinds of praise for this. Then after that, Nestor and Phil go to New Orleans. So that's the setting for that one.
Hoodoo voodoo.
Hoodoo voodoo. And by the way, I am not a proponent of voodoo.
Thank you.
This is to tell you, but the book is really telling you that, no, it's not voodoo. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen because I don't want to denigrate people's beliefs. Some people do believe in that, but I personally do not, and neither do my characters. I just want to make that clear.
Well, you know, if you write about murder, you don't, it doesn't mean you're a proponent of murder either.
Right, exactly. So they go down there, and Phil has the job as icebreaker. There's been estrangement in the family from the New Orleans side to the New York City side, and he goes down there, brings Nestor with him. It's winter break from school in February, and they know something is very strange because nothing is the way he was supposed to be. And Phil hasn't seen them since he was 3 years old, so he doesn't have a memory of how they should look. They really don't have pictures of them either. So it turns out that some people have kidnapped the family, the true family, and they're impersonating them to try to get money, and which they're supposed to be getting. And in the meantime, Phil does not want to involve the police because he wants to be the hero. He has hero fantasies throughout. As a normal 12-year-old boy would, he wants to save his great aunt and the uncle and the housekeeper. But they almost wind up getting killed, which he thinks is really cool. And then when he has a problem, he can't go to school. When they go home, of course, they get punished by the parents. And Phil cannot go to school because his arm was damaged and he can't write. He's right-handed. So now Nestor's happy because he gets the chance to be the hero, to tell the story to all the kids. And he loves all this attention for a positive reason, for a change. Then that brings me to the Ocean's Way Poetry Companion, which has 37 color photos of oceans and ocean life. And I have formula poems for each of the photographs. So the reader will learn science facts in a very concise way.
It's amazing how much information you can weave into a book where your characters go to an interesting setting and have to solve a problem.
Yes, yes.
Because that's basically what I did. With, I talk about my books as mystery, history, and science. And it's as I said, our journeys are very similar in writing, and it is interesting. I had a reviewer say that to me. How do you manage to sneak in all those facts? I take my characters to an interesting place where they have to solve a problem.
Yes, and then if they go on a tour, then the tour guide gives information and answers questions.
Yeah.
So that was the technique
That's what happens
that I used
in my turkey book.
Yes.
Not a gobble gobble turkey, but the country.
Right, right. And then my next book is Sojourn into the Night, a memoir of the Peruvian rainforest, which is really for 12 to adult. I would say it's very imagistic, and I'm not sure if the younger readers would enjoy it. And you're writing
the poetry. This is not poetry that you've elicited from kids.
This is not. No, this is not poetry. This is a non-rhyming poetic narrative. Okay. But in the other books, I wrote all the poems. Okay. Yes. Oh, yes. Those are all mine. Those are my poems, definitely.
Well, sometimes, people will publish poems, especially teachers.
Oh, from their students?
From their students.
No,
this is all yours.
This is all mine, yes. It's
good
all
to
mine.
Clarify.
And then with the Peruvian rainforest, when I did take that trip and I was mesmerized, it was very beautiful, although a very simple environment, but the tour guide was amazing because we were in the darkness on a little rowboat. There was a moon and stars, and we had 3 flashlights in a rowboat, and it was pitch black other than what we could really shine our flashlight on. And it was just amazing that he knew where everything was. And he said, oh, here's this, that, and the other thing, and whatever. And when we would shine the flashlight, we would see it, and sometimes not.
Well, he's probably done it without the flashlight.
Yes.
And your eyes become accustomed, and
yes.
So he knew. He was a good guide.
Yeah, he was tremendous. And it was funny because when I took pictures, like sometimes he said, oh, well, here's something. And I didn't know, I couldn't see it, but I took the picture.
There it was.
When I went home, I applied watercolor effects to all of these. There are 30 photographs in this book, in my Sojourn book. And by applying the watercolor effects on the computer, with the light and dark and the different colors, the images emerged from the background, from
that's
the
great.
camouflage. So I was very happy that I was able to see. I actually had a lot of images, which I didn't know that I had until I applied the watercolor effects.
So you really have three very different genres. You have your
Yes.
Middle school mysteries, you have your poetry, and you have this, what would you call this?
It's actually a memoir.
Okay.
Okay, but it's a non-rhyming poetic narrative with 30 original photographs of the rainforest.
Interesting.
I have some little poems in there too, actually.
How did you publish?
I'm self-published. You know, I tried, you know, to submit, you know, to different agents and to publishing companies, and I got a lot of rejections. But most of them did not answer me at all. You know,
That's right.
3 to 6 months later, I still hadn't heard. And I guess I don't like having brick walls put in front of my face. So I said, I'm going to do this myself. And that's exactly what I did. I decided I'm going to self-publish. I did not know how much work there was involved in it, how much responsibility, but it was also a great feeling of satisfaction.
Did you use CreateSpace?
I
or Kindle?
did.
Yeah,
I did.
You know, CreateSpace is now Kindle Direct Publishing.
I know it is, and I do miss it.
But it's the same thing.
It is, but it isn't. It's also...
Well, they won't do your graphic designing. You
Right.
have to have a manuscript that can be submitted as is.
Yes, yes.
And I think you have to start with the ebook and then convert to a paperback.
I'm not sure about that. You may be right.
Because I did, my last book I did on CreateSpace, it was only about a year ago, and I used CreateSpace, and I loved, it was so easy.
Yes, it was.
So I have to see how this is going to work.
Well, when I did CreateSpace, my Ocean's Way Poetry Companion, which is like this one, for instance, you know, I have here the photographs, and then you know, the poems are in a frame, and of course
And
they're
they did
color
that for you. They pretty much set
I
it up.
did this. I did it. What
But
they
you-
right. I created it. They made sure that it was the
Yeah.
right spacing.
Yes.
They placed it on the page.
What do they call that? The gutter.
Right.
They
the
keep
gutter.
it out of the gutter. which
Exactly.
sounds really
And they
strange.
made sure that it was all uniform.
This is the gutter.
Right, exactly. They made sure it was all uniform so that it was placed
But
correctly.
now you have to do it yourself.
Now I have to do that myself.
Yeah, but I had to also. But they suggested how I do it, you know, because you submit it and then they give you the ability, like a proof. They give you a proof, and then if it's, and they tell you what's wrong with it, and then they tell you how to fix it. That's how it was when the last time I did CreateSpace. So I don't really, I'm not sure how it works now, but I'm going to find out because I use a self-publishing company for the first four books. And although they did all of that graphic work, they were very expensive. And I don't know, really want to go that route again. Plus the fact that when you put your books on Amazon and you buy your books from Amazon, they're much cheaper.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yes.
and there is that. When once you get into 5 and 6 books, you're talking about a lot of money. How about marketing? What's the best marketing technique you've come across? Because we only have about 4 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. I would think that social media.
You have a website.
I have a website.
Facebook.
I have Facebook.
You do a
know,
blog.
Twitter. Yes, I do.
Is
a
your blog separate from your website?
No, my blog is
Is
on the website.
Mine
It
is
says
too.
blog.
Yeah,
Yeah, it says
yeah.
blog. It's ElaineDonadio.com, and that's my website. And if you go in there, you'll find the blog. So I think all of that, and also doing book signings, joining organizations. For instance, like Long Island Writers Group, for instance,
Right.
which you know is a wonderful organization.
Are you belong to Long Island Children's Writers and Illustrators?
I did. I right this moment I'm not a member, but I was in that
Are you
organization.
in Long Island Authors Group?
No, I'm not, because I tried, but I don't live on Long Island now, and I was
okay.
not born and raised on Long Island, so they did not allow me in. I tried. I really did. I tried.
What snobbery.
I tried so hard.
I shouldn't say that.
They said no.
I'll get drummed out of the floor now.
I know, they said no. They said no to me, so that was it. I didn't make it.
Yeah, but it's doing the events. It's finding where the events
Yes.
are. And I have a great deal of success with crafts fairs associated with churches and schools.
Yes, also that. And also, I have a wonderful contact with Barnes & Noble in Stamford, Connecticut. Daniel, the assistant manager there, is very open-minded to even to
having you do a
self-published.
talk.
I did 5 book signings in the past year and a half.
Good.
In that location only. That was the only one that would allow me because the other.
No, I know. I've been through Barnes & Nobles.
Because they said that it's their competition. Amazon is their competition, and they don't want to give them business. This was the only one.
I know.
And Daniel said, anytime you want to come, just call me and tell me.
I'll make a suggestion to
Okay.
you. What has worked really well for me, not in so much selling my books, but in getting my name out there, is get a lecture series based on what you know, not your books,
Okay.
but what you know.
Okay.
Mine is topics in forensic science because that's what I taught. That got me into writing. So, okay, we have a minute left. I promised you could do an elevator pitch. You want to do it?
Okay.
Or say anything else you want to say.
Well, I think what it comes down to is that my books, I think, encourage readers to learn while having fun. And I believe that the readers will feel that they can experience the real world through the eyes of my characters. I also hope that they would realize that real life people, as the characters, have problems in their lives, whether their parents are alcoholic or they have abandoned them for whatever reason, or whatever the situation might be. But through the help of family members and outside influences, these problems can be overcome. And also in relationships, there's an ebb and flow, that you should never feel that whatever is that you're feeling today is what you're going to feel tomorrow, and that you're always going to have anger and love for people in your life, and that you have to learn to overcome that and to look at what's good about the relationship and accept people with their flaws.
Yep, that is a very good elevator pitch, and that's basically what your books are about. So it was great to have you as a guest, and I wish you great success with these books because having looked into them, they are great fun.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.